Hello everybody back home. I promised that I would give you as much video as possible. I'm not the best person to do video, but I'm going to try my best because I understand that there is a lot of hopes and wishes that are traveling with us. So I'll give you a little summary. So it was a bit of a whirlwind for me. I came and landed on Thursday and had was it Thursday? No, it was Friday. I came and landed on Friday, and I went straight from the airport to the activist tour of New York City, which was incredible. And then followed by that, we went to the Ku'e and Kani Kapila at New York University and presented there. The next day, we just had prep going all the way up into the evening. Went to the Liberty Challenge with Hokulea. And had a wonderful time with the Hokulea crew. I actually ended up spending a lot of time with the crew because, for those of you who don't know, I'm a medical officer with PBS, and instead of doing like recruitment for the AHA, but it was wonderful nonetheless. And that night we had the Aloha in New York City, which was incredible. We got a chance to be honored by the Seneca Council, recognizing our kingdom. In return, we recognized theirs as well, and it was a beautiful experience, connecting with our people in New York City. The next morning, we woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning so we could get on a train at 6 a.m. and travel 3 hours to Washington, D.C. The idea behind that was, in part, a pilgrimage to reenact the red ribbon letter journey that Queen Lili uokalani made in her journey to present her protest of the overthrow and annexation to Washington, D.C. The next day, we went arrived at about 9, had an incredible Aloha in Washington, D.C., where we met with a lot of wonderful people. And I think one of the stories that kind of really stuck out for me is how kind of relatively isolated they felt in the area, but at the same time, that they reconnected with each other in various ways. And two of the folks, Jeanette and Brittany, had actually met on online discussion forum by this transgender Asian poet who was really progressive in a lot of different ways, but was just saying how wonderful federal recognition would be for Kanaka Maoli. And when they both stepped in and said, hey, wait a second here, there's a much more complicated story, and let me tell you the history. And this was a wonderful teaching moment, a bonding moment for these two wonderful women that we got to learn a lot more about, that had been in relative isolation, yet at the same time very strongly connected back to our communities back home. And it was a wonderful education point, a teaching point for somebody who was otherwise of great conscience, who would be a wonderful ally, I think, to us if they fully understood the history and understood what the significance is to our people. So that night, we finally got into the center of DC to kind of get ourselves ready to be in the belly of the beast. And it turned out that we had been completely blocked from having any types of meetings whatsoever. And it turned out that was actually a really important thing for us, because all of us had been going really hard. I know for myself, I've been going very, very nonstop for the past 7 months or so, ever since we decided to take on the kuleana of Aloha. And so we had a brief moment of kind of quiet where we could take a little bit of a rest. But as soon as we did, and we were okay, all of a sudden we just kind of started jumping into action. And one of the most incredible things that happened today was we went to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in the DC area and brought our incredible portfolio that were put together by some of our wonderful folks. In particular, I had a part with it, but Heilani and Shane did a tremendous job Leah would participate in, and also Leah Kuker also participated in helping design the conceptual ideas behind it. Folks like Charmaine Bugado came up with this wonderful idea for to kind of show the map of all the work that we had done, and so we included it. Where is it at? But basically, really was a Kako effort. It was a wonderful thing to have this. It's a very powerful image to put up there to show how many people we had reached, and to share with them like what we were about. And while we were there, we met a couple of like folks that were from home. We're here actually just interning, and they're incredibly interested in finding out more about what's going on. The director Cody, I think she tried very hard to kind of keep to the party line, I guess, so to speak. But we definitely wanted to let them know that even if they're in DC, we are still very, very concerned about the relationship that they were having with CNHA and the Shah and Na'ia Puni. And we wanted to make it absolutely clear that the voice of the people is here with us, that the DOI hearings were that our people spoke overwhelmingly against federal recognition, had been pretty much ignored, and that even if they thought that they could ignore it because they thought that we wouldn't be able to reach them here in Washington, D.C., here is a good example of us saying that actually wherever our people are at is where our voice will be at. Another important thing that happened was some of our hosts, Eddie and Joni, they are folks that had been part of the movement in the 70s, the local movement, and they helped run Coffee Line at UH, for those of you who don't know about that. But they're now living here, and that's where we're staying at. And they took us over to, I guess these are backwards because it's a flip screen, but the Anderson house. And then that house is where actually the power brokers at the turn of the century used to meet. And if you can look at the dinner guest list, the Doles were there. And it was at these dinners that they had that was actually where they kind of broke up and divvied up the world. If you look at the books by Isabel Anderson, she writes about the spell of Japan, the spell of this other place, and the spell of Hawaii and the Philippines, and really what kind of role it placed in the whole concept of American manifest destiny. I think that's an incredible treasure trove of potential history that we haven't really fully delved into. I mean, like we all know, there's a tremendous amount of information that is out there. We just need to kind of find it. But the greatest thing that happened to us, I think, was to be able to get certified copies of the Red Ribbon Letter. This is the letter that Queen Lili took to Washington, D.C. And it's found at the National Archives and Records. And we were able to get copies of her protest. So here's mine. So that was pretty huge. At the end of the day, we went to meet. We actually went to have something to eat at an Eritrean restaurant. Now, for those of you who don't know, Eritrea is a separate country that had kind of been pushed together with Ethiopia, and they had a revolution, and because of that, a lot of their people actually had to leave Eritrea. And when they left Eritrea, when the independence vote came up, there was a means and for them to continue to engage and to vote regarding what had happened back home, what was happening back home, and that I think that's something we need to look at in regards to how did they do that? How did they, how could they tell there were some refugees? It was a war-torn era. but they still felt it was very important to include them. And I think that's kind of in lines with one of the things that we're kind of looking at in regards to our diaspora. And that's still something that needs to be really discussed a little bit more in our communities. How are we going to do that, and how are we going to remain true to our basic culture, and understanding that one of our fundamental philosophies at the Hawaiian is that the people who are responsible for the kuleana of that area should be the ones who lead. So lots of questions, lots of potential possibilities for it. And for those of you who followed our post, being really, really proactive about trying to set up something with the DOI when they've been meeting with the CNHA and Shaw folks, that actually resulted in a meeting for tomorrow morning. So I better end the evening and wish all of you aloha and send out my love to all of you at home holding down the fort. And hopefully we are representing you well, and we'll continue to keep you posted. Aloha, Aina.